I'd like to welcome all viewers to this session on Introduction to Management System Standards. Over a quarter of century back, to be precise about 28 years back, the industry got a new tool for managing quality in terms of the ISO 9001 standards. Since then, we have seen a proliferation, a growth in the management system standards, not just ISO 9001, we had ISO 14001, the standards for environmental management system, and any number of other standards providing a very efficient tool for handling any problems related to quality. So, what we are going to see in this session is a brief background to how these standards were established and where we are today in terms of the number of standards that are available to the industry, both the manufacturing industry as well as the service sector. It is essential to understand what these standards are intended to mean, what these standards mean and how the industry can benefit from these standards. Moving forward, initially the quality was something that was managed by inspection. That means you produce a product and subsequently you inspect whether the product meets the requirements of the customers or not. Obviously, those that were not meeting the requirements needed to be discarded, which resulted in a fair amount of wastage. Quite obviously, this is not a very efficient method of managing quality. Subsequently, the quality control, a term that we all are familiar with, was introduced, which meant that a certain amount of testing of the incoming raw materials, the in-process materials as well as the finished goods was involved. Again, quite obviously, this eliminated to a certain extent the problem that was associated with just inspecting a finished product, but still this was still not efficient, and we moved on to the next concept, which is called the quality assurance. So, in addition to testing of materials, we also had certain other concepts like process controls and training of operators which were introduced, which provided a fair amount of assurance that the products manufactured would meet the quality requirements on a consistent basis. Moving away from this concept, we had this quality management systems as a tool for managing quality. We will shortly take a look at what this actually means, but the concept was that the quality needs to be built into your product and just not inspected, which is quite a common sense approach to handling the problems related to quality. Initially, this was thought of as something that is important for the defense sector, and we had standards defining what we now know as quality management systems, the mil specs of the United States as well as the defense standards that the NATO countries had adopted. This was primarily for the defense sector. Subsequently, we had the British Standards Institution bringing out a standard that was meant for the general industry called the BS 5750. We did have a corresponding Indian standard which provided the Indian industry with a tool for managing quality way back in the late 80s. Subsequently, in the year 1987, the ISO, the International Organization for Standardization, brought out the first set of quality management systems. We had 3 standards, the ISO 9001, ISO 9002 and ISO 9003. These standards were meant for organizations with different kinds of capabilities, the 9001 for organizations which had design competence and where design was a requirement to meet the customer requirements. We had 9002 which focused on manufacturing and 9003 which focused on inspection and testing. Obviously, the standards had management system requirements like documentation, document control, records management, etc. Then in 1994, the first revision of ISO 9001 took place. Certain new concepts were added in this standard like the preventive actions, which was not there in the earlier version, but primarily the structure was very similar to what we had in the 87 version of the standard. Then in 2000 we had a first major revision of 9001. The concept of what we now know as a process approach was introduced, with a focus on the inputs, the process as well as the outputs. Again, quite obviously, if the quality of the inputs, the quality of the process both are managed well, the chances are that the output would meet the requirements that any customer would want. So, this was a major shift, would say the paradigm shift in what the ISO 9000 standards preached. The standard also supported the plan, do, check, act cycle, the PDCA cycle or the Deming cycle as it is known, to make sure that the systems continue to improve from time to time by checking and acting on the feedback that was received during the checking process. We had another revision of ISO 9001 in 2008, but this is not a very significant revision in the sense that certain feedbacks and comments that were received from the users were incorporated. Very recently in 2015, that is last year, the ISO 9001 standard underwent a significant revision. Shortly we would be seeing what these changes were. As I just explained, the 87 version had 3 models of quality assurance with a 20 element structure. The 94 version, the concept of preventive action was included. 2000 version, there was a major shift with a process approach and the PDCA cycle concept being included in the standard, and in the 2015 version there were significant changes. In the year 2012, the ISO TC 176, the technical committee that is responsible for the ISO 9000 development, celebrated 25 years of implementing 9001 and concluded that it is necessary to create a QMS model which would last another 25 years. So, they did not want significant changes to be made once the revision standard was revised and was made available to the industry and stakeholders. So, there was intensive work, the background work that was done by the members of this technical committee, and the revised ISO 9001 2015 standard was published by ISO on 23rd September 2015. The scope of the standard has not changed. It still is a standard that is meant for the industry to produce products that meet the customer requirements as well as the applicable regulatory requirements. This has not changed. However, the structure and core terms were modified to allow the standard to integrate more easily with the other international management system standards. The 2015 version of the standard is also less prescriptive than its predecessors and focuses on performance. This was achieved by combining the process approach with risk based thinking and employing the plan, do, check, act cycle at all levels in the organizations. Some of the key changes include a greater emphasis on building a management system suited to each organization's particular needs. Obviously, we have small organizations, large organizations, multinationals and other organizations, and so for each organization the management system needs to be tailored for its own needs. So, this standard puts an emphasis on that particular concept. Requirement that those at the top of an organization be involved and accountable for aligning quality with wider business strategy. Over a period of time, though the standard has been available for over 25 years, there was a disconnect between the top management, the business strategy and implementation of the standard for various reasons. This standard has now incorporated requirements that should at least theoretically force the management to align their quality objectives with the business strategy. This standard also promotes risk based thinking throughout the standard and makes the whole management system a preventive tool and encourages continuous improvement. What this means is, while a standard management system is developed within an organization, you are going to understand what are the possible risks to the objectives of the organization. The basic objective as far as ISO 9001 is concerned is producing a product that meets the customer's requirements as well as the applicable regulatory requirements. So, in producing a product, various processes are involved. So, what would be the possibility or the risk of something going wrong in these processes, and how do you mitigate those risks by putting in safeguards? So, that is the way that an organization is encouraged to think when it is developing its management system standards. Uh, there was one complaint or one feedback that ISO has been consistently getting about these standards was the prescriptive requirements for documentation. There was a perception that quality management system means a lot of documentation in terms of writing down SOPs or procedures, maintaining a number of records and so on. So, this standard focuses on less prescriptive requirements as far as documentation is concerned. The organizations can now decide what documented information it needs and what format it should be in. For instance, the term quality manual is not used in the standard anywhere. The another key objective of this standard was to align ISO 9001 with other management system standards for the benefit of the industry, for the benefit of users of multiple management system standards, and this has been achieved through the use of a common structure and core text. Let us look at the number of management system standards that are available to get an idea of how ISO 9001 standard has encouraged development of management system standards in other areas. We had ISO 9001, that is a quality management system requirements. Then we have ISO 10004, quality management customer satisfaction, guidelines for monitoring and measuring. Of course, a key requirement of 9001 is customer satisfaction, and this standard provides the guidelines for monitoring and measuring. We have a standard that is focused on medical devices, ISO 13485. This standard has also been revised recently to align it with ISO 9001. We have ISO technical specification 17582, a quality management systems requirements for electoral organizations at all levels of government. For instance, how election should be conducted, what are the requirements for organizations that is responsible for that. So, you would find the requirements in this standard. We have standard ISO 18091 that is applicable for local governments. We had a workshop document on quality management system, specific requirements for the application of ISO 9001 for organizations that are involved in the supply chain of the nuclear energy sector. We have another standard that is meant for educational organizations. This is a work in progress. It is not a standard that has been published yet, but this can provide some guidance for educational organizations. We have a standards that is meant for explosive atmospheres, application of quality systems for equipment manufacturers where the equipments are used in explosive atmosphere. Similarly, we have other standards that are meant for private security operations, then food safety management systems. We had guidance on the application of the food safety management systems. This is ISO 22000 and ISO 22004. When it comes to safety and security, again there are a number of management system standards that have been developed. We have 22301, which is gaining a lot of popularity. There is the business continuity management systems, how businesses can survive any incidences that can threaten even the closure of a business. So, this has requirements that requires businesses to evaluate risk and prepare for adversities. We had ISO 22313, societal security business continuity management systems guidance. We have a standard that talks about activities relating to drinking water and wastewater services, crisis management of water utilities, and as you see, we have a standard on ships and marine technology, guidelines for private maritime security companies. That is another management system standard. We have standards on security management systems, fraud countermeasures and controls. We have a standard that deals with animal welfare management, general requirements and guidance for organizations in the food supply chain. We had a workshop document 35001, laboratory biorisk management systems, and we have a standard ISO 39001, road traffic safety. I think this is a standard that is very much needed for a country like ours. Again, requirements with guidance for use. We have a standard for occupational health and safety management systems, which is under development. That is why you see ISO draft international standards available. We have a standard for explosive atmosphere. We have seen that even earlier. No? When it comes to general management, we have asset management, ISO 55001. We had a standard for guidelines for implementing the asset management standard, that is an ISO 55002, and we had a standard on sustainable and traceable cocoa beans for a specific product, requirements for sustainability management systems. No? We have another standard, medical devices. This is a standard that we had seen earlier, but classified under health and medical category. No? We had similarly, we have a number of standards on environment and energy, the ISO 14000 standard, 14000 series of standards, 14001, 14004 and 14005, all related to environmental management systems. And we had ISO 14006, that is guidelines for incorporating eco design in a product. No? We have ISO AWI 19443 quality management systems, specific requirements for the application of ISO 9001, again in the nuclear energy sector. We had 50001 and 50004, these we had seen earlier. When it comes to industry specific standards, we have a standard on management systems for graphic technology, how security printing processes need to be managed. We have a standard on primary packaging materials for medicinal products, for application of ISO 9001 in this specific sector, and we have a document that is under preparation, that is facilities management, integrated management system, requirements with guidance for use. In the services sector, we have ISO IEC 20000, which is on relates to information technology, service management, system requirements. We have 20121 event sustainability management systems required with guidance for use. Again, this is gaining a lot of popularity because everyone is talking about how events can be managed on a sustainable basis without damaging the ecology or the environment. So, this standard is becoming quite popular. We have a standard on adventure tourism, safety management system requirements. Again, this is going to be, as we find this adventure tourism gaining currency, this standard is going to be of significant use for those organizations involved in this. We had a recent incident where a zip line did fail and or did not provide the necessary safety for the users. So, this standard is expected to minimize those kind of incidents and avoid tragic loss of life. We have standards that relates to drinking water, ISO 24518, which was brought out last year. Again, the crisis management of water utilities, water efficiency management systems, and we have seen the other, the local government and the electoral organizations in the earlier slides. When it comes to industry specific standards, the ISO 9001 had provided a basis for many industries to develop standards that are suitable for themselves. We had AS 9000, which was for the aerospace industry. We had TS 16949 for the automotive sector. We had TL 9000 for the telecom sector. These were primarily industry driven standards. That is why you do not see the term ISO in front of them. We have AS and TL, which means that the industry sectors themselves came together and developed these documents. We also have a standard for relating to the computer software, the ISO IEC 90003, and we have ISO TS 29001 quality management systems requirements for the design, development, production, installation and service of products for the petroleum, petrochemical and natural gas industries. Why do we need these management system standards? If you look at the definition of a management system is a framework of policies, processes, procedures used by an organization to ensure that it can fulfill all the tasks required to achieve its objectives. So, a management system standard is expected to provide an industry with a tool for making sure that they can produce products on a consistent basis, the products that meet the requirements of its customers as well as the applicable regulatory requirements. So, in order to implement the management system standard effectively, it is necessary that the organization should have the right kind of policies, that is policies which proactively ensure that the customer requirements are taken care of, and the system standards helps the organizations to develop the appropriate processes which are based on the PDCA cycle, the plan, do, check, act cycle about which we had discussed briefly earlier, and develop the appropriate procedures so that the organization would have a system that continuously improves by following the PDCA approach. To summarize, the objective of a management system standard is to help build quality into your product and improve effectiveness and efficiencies. So, you would see the two terms, the effectiveness as well as efficiency. What it means is you would be able to do this in a cost effective manner. Usually we tend to associate quality means increased cost, which is not always the case. If you eliminate wastage which occurs within the system, you would be able to produce a product that meets the requirements, that is effectively as well as efficiently. So, management system standards are a tool for organizations to produce products at a most economic way. The first and most popular management system standard was ISO 9001, the quality management systems. As we had seen, this is a standard that was published way back in 1987, and since then it has been the basis for a number of other management system standards to be developed. So, this continues to be by far the most popular standard, and now we have a number of other management system standards. Quite obviously, the question that would be that one would like to ask is, do all these management system standards have a uniform structure? Unfortunately, this is not the case when the standards are developed. The reason is the standards are developed by different technical committees within the ISO structure, which use their own background and their own knowledge and their own needs to develop standards that are not really having a uniform structure. So, over a period of time, and if you look at the number of standards that are available to the industry, this did create a problem for organizations that were required to implement many of these management system standards. You had the quality management systems, you had the environmental management system, the energy management systems, the business continuity management systems, and any number of systems, all of which were needed by the industry. So, hence over a period of time, a need for a uniform structure for all these management system standards was felt by the industry, and the ISO did come out with a solution for this problem. They developed a common structure for all management system standards, a common structure, a common terminology, and so the management system standards were required developed by different committees of ISO were required to align their standards with what is known as a high level structure, which provides a basis for the development of all new management system standards. That is the reason why we saw that ISO 9001 was revised in 2015, and so was ISO 14001, the standard for environmental management systems. So, now you would have management system standards which follow a similar structure, which use a common terminology, making it easy, making the lives of industries implementing these standards a little more easier. So, it should be possible for businesses or organizations to integrate all these standards fairly easily. In fact, the understanding now is that whether it is a quality management system or an environmental management system, these are not standalone systems, and all these systems need to integrate with the business strategy, so for the organizations to become sustainable. So, over a period of time, this is going to help the industry, and you would find that they would have one management system which covers the quality, the environment, the energy, and any other issue that the organization is concerned with.